Hello and welcome to another Destiny video. Today I want to sit down and have an honest conversation about strikes. Strikes are in a weird place right now in Destiny. Let's first look back at year 1 and look at the way content is distributed. The way that I see it, there are 6 different ways content is delivered in Destiny. You have your traditional campaign missions, you have your open world areas to patrol, you have strikes, you have in-game PvE, will include raids and Prison of Elders. You have your casual PvP and you have your hardcore PvP. There is an argument that Prison of Elders should have its own classification because of the fact that Prison of Elders sits between strikes and raids, but we'll get into that in another video. So consider this a part 1 of 6 in a series where we look at each aspect of Destiny and ask ourselves 2 questions. We want to ask ourselves, what was year 1 like? What things did we like? What things did we not like? Then, what should year 2 give us? What should we be expecting into Taken King as people who love this game? So let's first talk about strikes. Why strikes? Because I think strikes are in a really interesting place, for that they sit in this middle ground between what we would consider to be the tutorial, or learning the game, and your end game PvE content. The way I perceive strikes is that they are designed to be this conduit to help gamers learn the game through patrols and campaign missions, and then you utilize the strikes to start learning some mechanics to prepare the gamer for the raid. The problem with this is at the launch of Destiny, strikes just didn't do that. That didn't work. I mean, most people would look at strikes and say, strikes are a glorified horde mode. Let's get real. You go from point A to point B, you stop, you wait for Dinklebot to open some door or to do some analysis, and you do horde mode. You fight a series of ads until you get to a point where Dinklebot opens the door for you, usually 2 or 3 waves or whatnot. I don't think it would be a stretch to say that most people classify raids as repetitive and boring, unfortunately. The weekly heroic strike and the nightfall strike, they do a fantastic job spicing it up, but we'll talk more about those in the in-game PvE content in a later video because I really think they fall into that. Again, most people don't see the bridge between strikes and raids. Or really, I should say, they don't see the bridge between campaign missions and raids, because strikes are really just a glorified campaign mission. Or really, you could say an extended campaign mission. The strikes just don't set you up for the raid. They don't prepare you. They don't give you a skill set that puts the gamer, puts the guardian in a position to be successful in the raid. I mean, my experience, I used to run a lot of people through the early campaign because I like to help players out. It's something I'm passionate about. And what I found is most players got to a situation where they were level 18, level 19. They're doing the strikes. They're starting to get repetitive. They're starting to get boring. They're knocking out the campaign missions. They're doing their bounties. They're doing their patrols. And then they find themselves at the last mission of the campaign. They beat that mission, and then they're like, "What do you do?" I mean, Vault of Glass, what was it, level 26? Whereas they're only level 18 or 19. What are they going to do? Grind the same strikes that they've already been doing? No, most people just give up. They're done. There's plenty of other games. We are living in a gaming community where there's plenty of games to play. There's no reason to grind some repetitive and boring chore if you don't have to. Yes, I'm looking at you, Angry Joe. You definitely fall into that crowd, and you know what? I don't blame you. It's not a dig at you or anyone else that stopped playing at this point. This is a dig at the developers. This is a dig at Bungie. Bungie has done a fantastic job putting this game together, but some of it they've just fallen short, and I think strikes in year 1 have fit that mold. I've met plenty of people who have not even played Vault of Glass because they didn't want to grind the strikes, and that's a travesty. An absolute travesty. Because Vault of Glass, in my opinion, is hands down the best piece of content in this game. It is what I would consider to be epic content. And with the way that the game has evolved, going from vanilla Destiny to Crota's End to House of Wolves, what I find now is the only reason people are even willing to go into Vault of Glass is because of the weapons. It's sad to say most people just skip over Vault of Glass entirely. So at the end of the day, in year one, strikes do not provide the necessary mechanics to prepare players for raids. We can look back and look at strikes and say, yes, they've done some things well. They are fun the first few times you run through them. But they do not provide the necessary mechanics to prepare players for the raids. At the end of the day, there's no mechanics that really get you prepared for Vault of Glass or Crota. Many Guardians have simply become absolutely frustrated and have quit because of it. So what do we need to see in year 2? The Taken King so far has shown us a lot of promise, and I think we can really look forward to doing strikes in year 2. The Shield Brother strike that was revealed a couple weeks ago really gives us great insight to what the strikes are going to look like in the Taken King. First off, bosses will no longer be bullet sponges. Yay! Vanilla Destiny strike bosses just have way too many hit points. They become a situation where it's just a hit point bursting exercise. This is one of the reasons why Yellowhorn has become so popular. Remember back in Vault of Glass, people really didn't care much for Yellowhorn. It was a good weapon, but most people looked at the Icebreaker as the elite weapon in the exotic class. Gjallarhorn got its name from people realizing that they could just burst down these large hit point targets. But you know what? This is a different topic for a different day. So what we've seen is that we're actually gonna have some mechanics in the raid strike. This is a great thing. For instance, at one point in the strike, we see this tank show up and it's shooting at you, and really what's interesting is that it's in an enclosed space, and so the tank really creates a feeling of chaos. Additionally, we've also seen these little grates that have fire coming out of them, and it seems like the fire comes and it goes, and it's probably on some sort of timer. But what this does is it disincentivizes people to camp, because it gets people moving around. Between the tank being in an enclosed space, causing this sense of chaos, and the fire moving about, this is a mechanic that keeps players moving throughout the fight. So they've also shown us with the Taken King that there are other ways that they can maximize the use of raid-like mechanics. So in the Shield Brother strike, at the very end boss fight, there's two Cabal brothers, and I'm not really good at saying their names, so I'm not even going to try. There's one boss who is static in movement and shoots rocket. I'll call him the Rocket Boss. The rockets are telegraphed when they're shot from the Rocket Boss with a white ring on the ground. And that gives the Guardian a kind of a heads up that they need to keep moving throughout the encounter. The other brother is a dynamic moving boss where he moves around a lot. And not just moves around, but he actually launches himself forward at you with kind of a melee action. The dynamic between both of these two bosses is something that we could actually see in a raid. It's very raid-like. So the fight is actually fought in 3 stages. If you didn't get to watch it, I'm going to kind of break it down, and there's a reason I'm breaking it down. So the first phase in the encounter is you fight the melee boss. He's going to continue to move you around the arena. Once you've finally done enough damage to him, which won't take that long because these are not bullet sponge bosses anymore, they last just long enough to where you get the feel of the mechanic, and then you move on to the next phase. The second phase is the melee boss retreats, and then the rocket boss comes out. You fight the rocket boss. He is going to now display his mechanic to you to give you some time to adjust to it. This is presenting the Guardian with a scaled level approach where the boss fight continues to gain momentum throughout the fight. Unlike most boss fights, especially strike boss fights, where you lose momentum as you get closer to the end. Most strike boss fights are simply kill all the adds, then burn down the boss. But not this one. There is some element of that because there are reinforcements that you do need to burn down, but as you go from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3, and technically you could call there's a phase 4. So let's go straight into phase 3. Phase 3 is when you've done enough damage to the rocket boss to where the rocket boss retreats. Rocket boss retreats, you work on ads, regroup, pop heavy ammo Cynthia, do whatever you have to do. Then, in phase 3, both bosses run out. They come out at you and they're both displaying their full arsenal of their mechanics, which is great because it creates another dynamic. Again, there's a scaling up approach in this fight. Then once you've killed one of the two bosses, the other boss picks up that first boss's skills. So if you kill the rocket boss first, then the melee boss then gets the rocket. And then the melee boss is not just doing melee attacks to you, but is also shooting rockets at you at the exact same time. This is a fantastic upgrade. This is something that we haven't seen in Vanilla Destiny, and I'm really grateful and glad that we're getting to see some of this early, because it gives me a lot of hope that the strikes are going to gain momentum as we go along. The experience should become more and more rich as you get closer to the end. The feeling of the reward that you get from doing the strike and getting to the end should be something that's rewarding. The only thing that could top it off is based on how the loot drop system works, but I think we'll learn more about that once we get into the Taken King. And let's hope this enriched experience lasts longer than 2, 3, or even 4 runs. We need to see Destiny Strikes continue to become more engaging. And remember, I'm not talking about number of hours played. We shouldn't measure the success of a game or how engaging a game is by the number of hours played. Plenty of people play slot machines, and frankly, I don't think they're having any fun. They're just having a drink and playing a slot, hoping to, hit the next 4 of a kind or the next royal whatever. They're just trying to get a reward out of doing it. But that becomes more of a chore, and that's how I feel like year 1 Destiny Strikes are. They're more of a chore. We do them because we need to, we're doing the heroic strike because we need the strange coins, or we're doing the nightfall to get the nightfall buff. Whatever it may be, it's really more of a chore. We want to be able to accomplish strikes casually, but they should feel like a new experience every time you run through it. One way I think that it would feel like a new experience every time you run through it, or at least more runs through it, is if there was more designated responsibilities. Think Vault of Glass. In the Atheon fight, 3 players get warped, 3 Guardians now have to deal with a different set of obstacles and responsibilities than the 3 Guardians that were left outside. One of them takes the relic, whereas the other 2 have to fight the oracles out. This gives players a responsibility, gives them a sense of community, it gives them a sense of belonging, because they can't just be carried through that encounter. We need more of these kind of experiences. If you look back, frankly, just go and play any Zelda game and you can have a dozen ideas of different ways to do this. One person can carry the bomb while the other 2 defend it. One person can open a door, the other 2 go through it. The door closes, and now there's some sort of horde mode where the 2 are split up, and from the 1, and the 2 have to find a way to open the door for the 1. These kind of differences of responsibility create a new engagement every time we get into it. I would really like to see them implement some of that in Strikes. The last thing I'd like to see in year 2 Destiny Strikes is more relics. Give us the relics to use. Let us get some experience with the relic. I personally believe that the campaign missions should expose us to the relic. I thought that the Fist of Crota mission was great because it showed us the sword and how to use it in a very enclosed environment, whereas we should have had a strike that expanded upon them. So the campaign exposes you to it, the strike gives you training on it, and then they ask you to execute with the relic at a high level in the raid. There's a gradual progression So in conclusion, we've talked about strikes in year 1 and how we hope they're different in year 2. I truly believe Bungie is on the right path with strikes in year 2. They've taken our feedback, they've listened to you, and I think there's a real sense of optimism for year 2. Destiny is an organic game. It is constantly evolving. It is dynamic in nature. They are listening to us. You can be confident in that. So thank you for sticking with us. We're going to attempt to try to cover all 5 of the other videos before the Taken King comes out. We really want to talk about patrols, we want to talk about the raid, and we really want to get into PvP. PvP has been stellar in the last 5 or 6 months, and we want to make sure to acknowledge that and give it its due. So that wraps us up. Thank you so much for being along with us in this fantastic ride. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe this video. And if you know anyone out there that's interested in getting involved in Gaming for Breakfast, please share this with them and let them know that we are recruiting. We're looking for new people to help out in any way at all. Thank you and have a fantastic day.